cards going around, but nobody to sing to today. Betty Miller, 87, 90, 97, is that right, I think? I think so. And Erlene Stimmel. And Erlene, you know, is in a care center in Dubuque. So please write a little note to each one of those, and then a sympathy card for Karen Brown. And I think we're short a lot of people today because a lot of people are going to be heading to Bellevue this afternoon for Kevin Brown's services, and that was such a shock to all of us. He, such a good friend to everybody, such a hard worker. He's been on our board for over 12 years, and he's been our treasurer for most of that time. And very, very capable, and he's going to be so hard to replace. So, moving on. We just have a couple other announcements. I've handed out some of the thank you cards from Jenna Spain's class that came and did brown bag lunch a few weeks ago. So the kids wrote a few thank you notes, and I think they were kind of hit or miss. So I hope I've gotten most of those handed out at least. Want to remind everybody, if Shirley Brandon were here, she would be telling you about April 15th at the Methodist Church. That's the Wednesday Spring Flame. There are posters upstairs, so hopefully you'll plan to go to that. I think it's like 9 to 11, they have coffee, and maybe 11 to 2, they have lunch. And it's just a fun thing to go to with a free will donation. We're still planning our garage sale. We're trying to figure out when and where because we've got so many things going on. June 6th, there's going to be a big 250th birthday event at Squires Manor. And it's going to be, details will be coming, so I hope you'll pay close attention to that. In 2013, we did a big, it's called a summer soiree. I can't say that right, soiree, at Squires Manor. We had wonderful dining in the lawn, and we had an orchestra, and it was just a really big event to celebrate the 175th birthday of Makokada. Well, now we're going to try to do the same thing with the blessing of Robert and Janine Abbott, who own Squires Manor now, to celebrate our 250th birthday. So I hope you'll watch for details for that. We're just trying to get all of our many activities in. And so we're grateful for all of our volunteers. I'm especially grateful today for Sue. I'm not sure she was planning on doing this brown bag lunch quite so soon, but she stepped in for me so I can go to Bellevue later. And I do appreciate her. So thank you, Sue Mayberry.
Otherwise I'll say it.
You do say it. I did. Sorry.
Okay. So I just wanted to announce that there is a visitation for my Aunt Ruth Marvin Wiesmer in Preston this Saturday. I don't have that information in front of me, so Joy, where is that at now, and what time?
10 o'clock is the funeral at the Methodist Church in Preston.
10 o'clock is the funeral at the Methodist Church in Preston.
And then there will be a meal at the Preston Town Hall.
And a meal following at the Preston Town Hall. And if you do plan on attending the meal, if you could RSVP Sally Marvin with that information, or that you are coming soon, I guess, because they probably need to have that count. Cobblers, boots, and shoe merchants. So I just want to start out by saying there were more, way more than maybe I thought that there would be. So you're going to see where probably a lot of stores are left out, and so if you are interested in this topic, I'll do a part 2 and add in more of those, but otherwise I have left quite a few out just because, I have too many slides already. In 1874, excuse me, the Excelsior reported that there were 4 shoe shops in Makokada. But then there were also 7 dry goods stores, 3 hardware, and 4 clothing stores. So most likely those other 14 stores also carried shoes. And so I just find it incredible that people may have had 18 different places to shop for shoes in 1874. But then I guess keep in mind they probably didn't all have their shoe size either. So, maybe, I don't know, some catered more to other sizes. And then of course you could get your shoe made for yourself. Custom made, of course. So most of this presentation is devoted to the shoe businesses in Makokada, but then I do also have other towns represented as well. Bonnie was kind to send me a lot of pictures of ones I hadn't found, and so I'll have those included too. John Herbert Perret, do you think that's how you pronounce it, Perret? 81, I think that's right, okay. 81 years old, was for over 50 years a shoemaker in Andrew, and he was well known throughout the county. He died in 1914. He was born in Luxembourg, Germany in 1832. He married Anna Bernard, and they were the parents of at least 5 children. 3 sons and 2 daughters. He was a manufacturer of boots and shoes, and he had arrived in the U.S. in 1866, and by the following year he was set up in the shoe business. In 1867, A.T. Hart was listed as a dealer in and manufacturer of boots and shoes. Previously, at the age of 23, he had enlisted in the Civil War. And I really had problems finding any more information about him, and I don't like it when they just only include initials. It just really makes it hard to find out who that person was. David McMurray was born in Mercer County, Pennsylvania in 1836. He married Rachel Benjamin, and they were the parents of Bertie Roy and Arletta Murphy Rigby. In 1867, David McMurray was listed as a general dealer in dry goods, boots, shoes, and groceries in Andrew. He was appointed postmaster of Andrew in 1894. He also conducted a furniture business for a number of years. So I don't know if that was in conjunction at the same time with the shoe business. Normally today, we wouldn't combine those two things, furniture and shoes. McMurray was a Civil War veteran, having enlisted in 1865 in San Jose, California, and he was in the 1st Cavalry. And although he just served for 1 year, he fought in so many battles that were so bloody, and if I told you about all those battles, that would take up, the rest of the time here. In 1867, J.K. Miller was listed as a dealer in dry goods and groceries. He also sold hats, caps, boots, and shoes. He was born in 1830 and is buried in the Andrews Cemetery. He was appointed postmaster in 1866, and I'm uncertain as to who his wife was. He may have been the father of John, David, and Alucia. And Barb, I see you're in the audience. Would that be a relative of yours? Do you know?
Not that I know of.
Okay. And as you know, there were a lot of Millers, and again, just having those initials made it hard. Is this pronounced Couchemans or Couchmans? Anybody know? Clothing store was located on the corner of State and 2nd Street, and this photo was taken in the 1870s. It was built by the Couchmans to house Couchman and Son, a dry good and clothing store. This building was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1991. It was once the location of Bellevue City Hall, as well as the Bellevue Opera House. In 1918, the Couchman and Son store on its 2nd Street location celebrated its 50th anniversary with an old customers week. And so some of those old customers were Mueller, Afferdine, Bell, and Moots. And I also found a Lucky, or Lukey, how do you pronounce that? So I'm just thinking, so did he shop at the competitors? And many of these men were also Civil War veterans. So I'm just briefly mentioning the Lukeys because there's just so much about that store to tell about. And I think, Bonnie, you probably already covered it. So this is Jerry Lukey at his shoe store in 1987. And this was the store's 130th anniversary. And the store remained open for another 18 years. So they were in business for 148 years. They closed in 2005. Raise your hand if you had been to that shoe store. A Remical boot and shoe store was located on the east side of Front Street in Bellevue. Children in the front of the store are left to right: Dorothy Remical Wallace, Ralph Remical, and Geraldine Remical. Remical and Newhouse Shoe Repair Shop, also known as Remical and Newhouse Shoe Store. And the owners you see on the left is Mike Remical, and on the right is Joe Newhouse. And see, they have like their tools in their hand. You can see Remical is, pounding on the heel, and I can't see the picture clearly enough to see what Joe is doing with his shoe or boot. A. Ross and Sons was a dealer in general merchandise. They were located in Canton. Along with boots and shoes, they sold groceries, hardware, dry goods, and clothing. It states that they sold fancy and staple groceries. So I'm just curious as to what fancy groceries would be. Would that be like a can of peaches? I don't know. What would fancy groceries be? Anybody know?
Something made on site, like Mayberry?
Some bakery items? Is that what you're thinking? Like maybe some little
Non-essential.
non-essentials. Bonnie?
Or something that had to be shipped in, like oysters and things like that.
Oh, that had to be
Kind of
shipped in.
delicacies.
Okay, oysters, things like that. I am not certain, but I think that this general merchandise business run by N.A. Hoffman was located in Lamont in the late 1800s or early 1900s. They sold a variety of goods, including footwear. So I found two Nicholas Hoffmans. I may have found more than that, but two. One was born in 1899 in Jackson County, so this could have been his business. But then there was another one that served as a clerk in Prairie Springs Township in 1879. So it could have been him also. Another Lamont merchant was Belt, Knapp and Son, and they sold the usual dry goods, groceries, boots, shoes, drugs, hardware, etc. Okay, so this is a picture that Bonnie sent me, and I'll read what she wrote here. The view of the east side of Main Street in the late 1800s. So you've got the Depew Harness and Buggy Shop. So on my picture, I can't quite see it, but is it this? I can't tell where that is. Then you also have the Worden store, the Eric Hansen Senate Saloon. Now the Senate Saloon is right there with that hanging sign. And then you have Harrison's down a ways, and the furniture and undertaking store. And then on the corner here, you have the Shoal Shoe Store and a hardware store. And then the Owen McCaffrey tobacco store and the CM Sanborn grocery store are on the east side of the street. So they're over here on the east side, on the right side of the picture, with the City Hall clock tower on the left. You see that in the top left? The old high school and the Maquoketa Academy sit. Are they right there to the right of the clock tower?
They're back up on the hill, where the middle school is now.
Yeah. Is that,
Probably,
would that be it?
I don't know, I'm not sure.
And in the right rear, on the west side of the street, is the photography store and the Maquoketa Telephone Company. You can see the upstairs. Another picture. Stereo slide of East Platte Street. The first building is Phillips store, so that would be on the left. The second building is unidentified, and the third building is the clock tower. Actually, that looks like it's the fourth.
I think that's a mistake.
Okay, I don't think that's the clock tower, is
I
it?
think that's the Congregational Church.
That's the Congregational Church?
It was the Congregational Church before Daisy's did it.
Okay. And then next to that is, it's spelled different than Lukey, it's Luckey, shoe store. And then the tin shop. So the shoe store, I'm not sure which building that is.
But this is Maquoketa.
This is Maquoketa. So it's a different spelling of that shoe store, so,
And it's a different person.
and it's a different person. The Frederick M. Alden Clothing and Shoe Store opened sometime before 1917. And the building was located at about 113 South Main Street, which is where Otto Rio had his pool room. And Fred Alden, the photo on the right is pictured standing there ready to serve its customers. Now this business did burn in December of 1917. In 1896, the Excelsior listed the department store of E.V. Allen, which had opened about 11 years previously. This department store had 4 branches, including dry goods, boots and shoes, groceries, and millinery. Winthrop Blake was born in New Hampshire in 1803. He lived to be 79 years old. He was married and widowed and was the father of 5 children with his first wife, 10 children with his second wife. And his second wife, Paulina, was the daughter of Moses Clary, which his name sounds very familiar. And Moses had served with Captain Woods in the Vermont Company. And so is that the same Woods that you were going to do a presentation on,
It might be.
Bonnie? That might be the same
Something
one.
like that.
In the War of 1812. About the close of the war, he and his family came to Iowa, and they located in Maquoketa. Winthrop pursued his trade, which was that of a shoemaker. He was also a farmer, and he said he was successful in both endeavors, and that especially in the shoemaking. So he had the advantage of owning a crimping machine, which was quite rare for anybody to own a crimping machine at that time. And because of that, the government awarded him a really large contract. And so he was responsible for crimping and sewing the upper parts of boots. And so I assume, during wartime, maybe he was assisting with that. In fact, he did all of the custom work for that part of the country which he lived in on the East Coast at that time. And upon coming to Maquoketa, he continued his shoemaking career throughout his active years. And now in the newspaper clipping that you see, it's kind of sad. He had a daughter that lived in the far western part of the state, and when her father was ill, I believe he had a stroke, and she's rushing home on the train to see him, and she got within 40 miles, and he passed away. So she did not get to reunite with him. And then this article, I believe to be the same Winthrop Blake, and it was printed in 1831 in Vermont, and it states, "The musicians belonging to the 1st Rifle Regiments are requested to meet in full uniform. Winthrop P. Blake, Drum Major." And notice how music is spelled with a K at the end. Do you think that's a mistake, or did they used to spell music differently? And I was looking, it doesn't just appear spelled like that in the heading, but also it shows it. So, if they made a mistake, a typo, I don't think they did that twice. These ads from 1939 and 1949 appeared in Maquoketa yearbooks. B&B store, clothing and shoes, where the gang goes for up-to-the-minute clothing. And I have no idea who the proprietor of this was. The earliest advertisement I found for Butterworth's boot shop appeared in 1913 in the Talk edition, which is the yearbook. Butterworth, 1920, advertises spring low cuts. And so I'm assuming that they're talking about how the shoe, doesn't come up over the ankles, maybe like they used to.
Or further down on the band.
Or further down, okay. I see, yeah. In 1922, they advertised beautiful Oxfords and strap slippers in the very latest modes. And the printing on the side reads, Utz and Dunn Company. And I did find out that that's stamped into the leather. And you actually paid more to have your shoe with the stamp in it. It was like, a name brand. So now in 1923, you now have that same shoe, similar to it, only now you have 3 straps. It also has that stamp of Utz and Dunn. 1925, snappy spring styles in 2 tones, satins, tan, and patents. See the windows, because window shopping, that was a big deal. I mean, that was still a big deal when I was a little kid. You'd look in the window and see what you wanted. 1871, on the left, is an advertisement for Thomas Cannell. And on the right, this one, no, I don't know how to say that, Viewsville's, and that was located in Lyons, Iowa. So they had boots and shoes. and actually they boot and shoe factory. Whereas Thomas Cannell calls his boot and shoe emporium. And this advertisement for T.E. Cannell on the left appeared in 1878, and he advertised stiffeners to prevent boots and shoes from running over. And the advertisement on the right in 1874 says that he's paying cash for hides. About a year ago, I did a brown bag presentation on Mr. Cannell. If you're interested in seeing that, it tells a lot about this man. And he was just a big influence in the town of Maquoketa in getting it built to what it was. And this is an account from 1860 that shows the products of industry from Maquoketa. And on line 6, Mr. Cannell is listed right there. That's the bottom. And I tell more about that in that other presentation. Cannell boot and shoe business was later conducted by H. Reed and Company, as shown in this advertisement. They were located at 123 North Main Street, and I believe this is where the Shintowler Law Office building is. And on the top of the ad, it reads W.F. Butterworth, so I don't know if he's the same Butterworth then that I just showed you all those other advertisements for. The ad also states that they will sew your rips free of charge. And I wonder if you had to buy the shoes there to get that service. I don't know. 1885, Cravens and Frank advertisement stated they endeavor to be truthful and that they are able to sell at a better price than their competitors. And the way they explain this in the advertisement is that because of the way they're able to buy, with cash, that they're able to sell to their customers at wholesale prices rather than retail. 1925 edition of the Talk. This advertisement for Cut Rate Shoe Store. They sold Friedman Shelby's shoes. Friedman Shelby shoes were manufactured in St. Louis. And they were known for producing brands like Red Goose shoes. And there's 2 boys that are shown there in the picture, and this was taken in 1910 in Mexico, Missouri. The photo was taken at 6:30 in the morning, and as you can see, they really are boys. They're not even close to the age of a man. But that's kind of sad, they had to work in that factory at that young age. Also listed in the 1896 Excelsior was M.S. Dunn & Son, Arcade Clothiers. The son was Walter S. Dunn, and this advertisement appeared in 1904. They advertised hats, haberdashery, and shoes. 1913, Drousseau Brothers Shoemakers ad. They were located on South Main Street, and they offered shoe repairing and shoe lining. They carried a full line of shoes for men and boys. In 1919, they had settled in at their new location, the Moreo building. Is where it was located. Do you know where that was, Bonnie?
So the building that still has the white front, I think, isn't it? It's in the middle block of Main Street on the east side. It has white.
Kind of where Ragababes was?
Yes, sort of in that area.
In that area? Okay.
So
I just had not seen that word, M-E-R-R-E-R-O. Are those letters still on that building?
I don't think so. There was a big fire there, but then they rebuilt it.
Okay, so they rebuilt it after the fire.
Right.
This ad was found in the Talk edition of 1922. In 1924, the ad, Maquoketa's only complete exclusive bootery for gentlemen, located at 115 South Main. Constantin Drousseau was born about 1887 in Greece. He has immigrated to the U.S. in 1907. He departed on September 11, 1918 for Camp Gordon and was a mechanic on the ship the Virginian. He served with the 23rd Infantry, Company D. 1925 Daily Times article, Andrew and Constantine Drousseau, for 15 years proprietor of one of Maquoketa's leading shoe stores, visit their old home in Megara, Greece. Some time ago, they disposed of their shoe interests to Charles Kaler of Maquoketa. 1938 Exodus advertisement. In the 1920s, retail stores that traditionally specialized in shoe repair, they started using electric-powered equipment. And by doing that, they were able to repair the shoes, more quickly for their customers that were waiting. Fred Fletcher, the owner, he was born in 1884 and he died in 1961. He was married and the father of at least 5 children. He was still repairing shoes, according to the 1950 census, and he would have been 68 years old at that time. Electric shoe shop ad in the 1942 Exodus, congratulating the graduates, and in the 1945. Okay, I have a lot on the Gieslers, and I haven't quite sorted that whole thing out, how this name was changed and so on. But Klein Giesler Shoe and Clothing, in 1854, the Excelsior wrote about this business. He believes in newspaper advertising, and just drop into his pretty place of business and see the purchases being made. Harry Giesler, his wife and children lived on Pleasant Street. His early life was spent in the West, and from 1907 to 1924, he was in business in Maquoketa. In his later years, he moved to Lafayette and opened a gents furnishing store. After his first wife died, he married her sister. 1913 ad in the talk. This clever ad states, the rule that governs this store is the wish of our customers, not what we want, but what you want. They even offered a money-back guarantee. Appearing in 1914, the talk, fine furnishings, up to date, headgear, and good shoes. Big fire on December 4th, 1915. The firemen shown here hosing down the building next to the Giesler shoe shop. And another photo of this fire appeared on a postcard. The Stevens Block is a large building, and this photo shows the 2nd and the 3rd floors, that housed the post office, Ellis Dental, Lane and Buckner Furniture. Giesler Shoes was in the building on the far right. And this photo was taken by Hamley. So is gone? This building is gone, or is it still here?
This building's gone. The one that was on fire is gone, right?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of where that was for sure. 1920, Jackson Sentinel. So you could buy men's or ladies' shoes that had been $6. You could now get those for $4.80. And the $16 shoes are now $12.80. They also sold Mackinaws for $6.30 on up. You know what a Mackinaw is? Kind of like what a lumberjack wears, that plaid, double-breasted, and then eventually the Army adopted that. Of course, they didn't use the plaid material. 1922 and 1923 ads. Good buyers find that they save money. And young man, show us a desire to be the best clothed man in town, and we'll show you the clothes. We put our cards on the table, play fair, and slip nothing on you but a fine suit of clothes. How about it? And a lot of the ads talk about, how they're honest. I think maybe there was the perception that, some merchants weren't so honest. And that probably was the case. Giesler going out of business sale was one of the biggest sales events ever staged in the city. And manager Ledwick tells us that from every angle, the event was a complete success. So what they did was they had people submit ballots, and I'm just wondering if that's like the same thing as, registering for a prize. But the person that won the Ford car, he had 17,371,228 ballots. So he must have got all his friends to go in there, and I don't know. Here's the interior of the Giesler Shoe and Clothing Company. And this building was formerly Sue's Hallmark. After this, it was Sue's Hallmark up until 2003, and then of course we lost that in the fire. Now this ad was printed in 1928, and they went out of business in 1924. So, don't know. Somebody else just opened up another one? Use the same name? You're not supposed to be able to do that. He died, he's there at the age of 64. He was living in Kansas at the time. And I think he had been ill and so had moved away. March 1920, Excelsior ad. So who remembers Grant's store? Yeah, opening day at Grant's department store. The store in Maquoketa sells all sorts of things. The new double store with the arcade front. Our new daylight store opens Friday. Bigger, brighter, and better than ever. So I had thought, that those stores always had like the big windows, but maybe to begin with, they didn't have the big windows. So they had been doing business in Maquoketa for over 5 months, kind of in a crowded area. And so the 2 rooms that were owned by Mr. Taubman, he remodeled those into one large modern daylight floor. They thanked their customers for their support.
So that's where the brewery is now?
That's where the brewery is. Okay.
Do you have anything to add to that as you were redoing all that?
Well, we have a big picture, I think we got it from you, but,
Okay.
and there's some, like dentist or something, no, the optometrist, there's some doctor or whatever that was upstairs, and there's
Dr. Ellis, maybe?
2 different signs. I can't remember what they say. But, yeah, and when our landlords got the historic tax credit to restore it to the way it was, that's how we got the outdoor seating out front.
Okay.
And they had to do the bump out and have that,
Sure.
because that's how it was. The ceiling's about 75–80% original, floors are original.
And I know, you think that ceiling is original, having it been tin, but when we redid our building on Main Street, we found underneath the cornice part up at the top of the ceiling, underneath that, because we took it down to restore everything, was wallpaper. And I am seeing in some of the other businesses where they have wallpaper. So those tin ceilings came in, I believe, later. Otherwise you wouldn't have had that wallpaper there. So here's a couple more ads for grants. The top one advertising Peter's shoes, and the bottom one New Spring shoes. Hoffman Brothers, the home of quality. Merchant Nicholas Hoffman was native of Luxembourg and a resident of Le Mans. He died at around age 80. This ad says, quality is our first consideration, price next. We have both. 2 ads are shown for Cobblers. And remember, I forgot now who I said that they had sold the business to Cobblers. Was that the Drousseau brothers? In 1925, they offered shoes for the entire family and shoe repairing while you wait. 15 years later, the repairing business was under new management. King Steer Shoe Store. Now, Bonnie sent this one. So was this guy's name actually King Steer?
It was.
Yeah, so his first name was King. Okay. And you see King Steer on the left, and on the right is J. Lewis, who had the jewelry store. And this photo was taken in 1888. I put this phone here because somebody calls me every time I'm presenting.
So that was near the Decker house down there.
Near the Decker house? Okay. And if you notice, I don't know if I'm seeing tin on this one either, to the ceiling. But there are a number of them where I do see that wallpaper up at the top, and not tin.
And this is just kind of our best example of, there were over 250 businesses in downtown Maquoketa at this time during this era, and there were not enough buildings for everyone. So that's why you see one, and how the buildings are long and narrow, and that's what you see, 2 completely separate businesses in one building, because there just weren't not enough buildings for all the businesses.
And they had some in the basement, and of course
And
you
some
have your
upstairs.
buildings or businesses upstairs as well. And we don't know who the woman is in the back, or there's another man in the back there.
And dogs.
Oh, and dogs too.
Yes.
Okay, all unidentified. This 1913 ad for O.W. Crumb-Feeding Company appeared in the yearbook, and they sold footwear along with clothing. Now, I love the name of this, but then sometimes I think, you get this negative impression of a shoe. Lovely Pain. Lovely Pain shoe store advertisement. So on the right is a 1913 ad that appeared in the Chalk, and on the left, 1912, was in Maquoketa's Excelsior, and it states, keep your eye on the window. The earliest ad I found for McAllister's was this one, published in the Jackson Sentinel in 1919, and it was their second anniversary sale. The ladies' shoes had ivory cloth type tops, and some had black cloth tops, and most appeared to be button-up shoes. They also sold apparel and groceries. And then it talked about in 1920, they were trying to remodel, and they had gotten all these materials in, but they were still waiting on the big pieces of glass before they could start their construction. In 1921, McAllister's advertised a January clearance sale in the Jackson Sentinels. Shoes were reduced by 1/3 or 1/4 off, and they sold Russia calf and school heel. So the Russia calf was made from calf skin, and the school heel, you know, those weren't built for fashion. It was more for a sturdy heel that you could wear at school all day. And then they had a military heel they advertised, and that was real thick and sturdy, you know, what you would need. And then brown Russia refers to a traditional or military style brown leather, similar to like what they'd use in combat boots. And then they also had a Russian leather that they talked about how birch oil was worked into that leather. That was the difference between that and other leathers. More McAllister ads, 1922, the Busy Store. And in 1925, the name changed because they added and Son, and they were at 112 to 114. So I don't know if that means they had 3 storefronts then. And then the McAllister store was sold. And this move was followed by a really big event. One of the oldest shoes ads that I found was this one, an advertisement for Maquoketa Boot and Shoe Manufactory. Custom-made boots and shoes with the best quality. Custom work done on the shortest notice. 1854, W.M. Briley. Don't know much about him either. Business Directory of 1870 listed this business, One Horse Store. And it stated, Ben and Hank keep a large stock of dry goods, clothing, boots and shoes, crockery, jewelry, etc. And they also sold sewing machines. Reed and Dove were in business for 5 years. And this, again, there's this Reed and Company, there's Reed and Dove. There were just a lot of changes with this name, but this is an 1890 ad. E-E-E-E, for ease to your purse and your feet. Always go to the old reliable boot and shoe house. In 1890, Harvey Reed owned a shoe store and beautiful residence at 409 West Maple Street. He greatly promoted the library, and he served 16 years on the school board. He was one of the original founders of the Jackson County Historical Society in 1903. And so Harvey, evidently the museum, we have a lot of Harvey's writings. And one of his beliefs was that you owe something to your community, and it's your place to give your best. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1974. Harvey Reed was 2 years old when his parents moved from the native state of Wisconsin, and he received his early education in the public schools. And then he went on to Madison University and pursued a course of study there. At age 17, he taught for 3 terms, and then he began to assist his father in his store. Actually, he began as soon as he was large enough, so maybe he even worked there as a child. And then he continued with his father until 1862. It says his young mind was thrilled with interest and excitement about the Civil War. And so he did enlist in Company A, the 22nd Wisconsin Infantry, and marched forth to defend the old flag on southern battlefields. His regiment joined the Army of the Cumberland, and he took part in Sherman's march to the sea. After leaving the Army, he came to Maquoketa, and in Sebula engaged with the Iowa Packing Company as a bookkeeper, and he retained that position until 1886. 1892, they offered ladies red goat booties, high-cut nullifier slippers, and those were designed for warmth, and then infant-colored kid bootettes. I couldn't find what boutette, I mean, that'd be booties, but it's calling them bootettes, and it doesn't appear that that is a word anymore. 1893, William Franklin Dove, his partner, was born in 1864 in Iowa near Iron Hill. So I don't have a lot about Dove, but in the 1900s he was living in Delaware County, married, and had 3 children. H. Reed and Company sold Armstrong superfine footwear for women and Crawford shoes. And now here it says, you know, basically the Crawford shoes are made by a well-named brand, but they don't have a stamp on them, so we can sell them for less, because they're not stamped with that. A New York store on Main Street was opened by Mr. Rice in 1874 in one of the handsomest arranged establishments in the West, with a very large and well-selected stock of dry goods, ladies' furnishing goods, and millinery. Mr. Rice's wife superintends the millinery department, and so she had like quite a few assistants that worked under her, and they could always be found on hand to show customers the new and desirable fabrics constantly arriving at this mammoth fashion emporium. This photo taken of Rice's in 1893, and it stated that Rice's was one of the first stores to open in Maquoketa, which they didn't open in 1893, they opened before that. Mortimer Rice was born in 1841 in New York. He married Emma Louise Schneider. Their daughter Cora Margaret Rice married Ed Brown. And Mr. Rice, what is that noise? Oh.
I don't know.
Hearing aid.
Your hearing aid?
And after her mother died, then her father lived with them. Here's a picture of Mortimer. He's 92 at the time, and you see he's holding a fishing pole in the back. Look at all those fish. Oh, that's quite a few.
What are they?
Fish.
I know, but what kind?
Oh, what kind of fish? Oh, don't ask me.
Fish are they, hon?
I don't know. Hard to say. Oh, and then on the box says monarch something. And then here's a picture of Rice with his family. So I think he's the one kind of in the middle with the suspenders, and then probably his wife down a step over to the right. And then probably her mother, that lady looks just like her, doesn't she? I mean, those 2 women look a lot alike. I don't know who this lady is then. Mr. and Mrs. Rice came to Maquoketa in 1871, and he entered the mercantile business here, which continued to operate until 1909, when he sold it to Hawk and Martinson. Mr. Rice was an expert checker player. He loved to play checkers. Mortimer Rice died at age 94, and at that time, he was Maquoketa's oldest living vet. And some of his comrades were James Sutton and John Huff. And that is your relative, right? James Sutton? No.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. And so Nancy did a program
I
on
was
her.
trying to figure who else that would be. There's no name there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, Maquoketa's oldest Civil War vet. Yep. His obituary claimed that they selected Maquoketa because Mrs. Rice was so impressed by the beauty of the maple trees on the Eaton property on South Main that she exclaimed, "Oh, let's stop here," and they hadn't regretted it since. So where would that Eaton property have been? I mean, was it way far south? I don't know. In 1862, Rice enlisted with Company H, the 35th Iowa Volunteer Infantry. And so this is a GA gathering, and I believe he is the one to the very far left standing. Either that or I cut him off by mistake. I was going to check that out. Sigur's Shoe Store, 1940. We feature America's finest footwear for men, women, and children. And so When I see this about Sager's Shoe Store, I know there was one when I was little, but I don't, was this the same one? It was the same one. Okay, same one in the 60s.
When did Sager's Shoe Shop close?
I don't know.
I don't know, I kind of remember it too, but.
It must have been in the 50s, late 50s.
It had to be at least in the 60s.
Okay, maybe in the 60s.
It was it's where Spalding's
Okay.
later was. Okay. If it's new, you'll find it here. Snappy shoes for everyone. Sager's Shoe Store, 1950. We feature nationally known lines at popular prices. X-ray fitting, phone 359W. The same ad appeared in 1955 in the Exodus. So between the 1920s and the 1950s, a lot of the shoe stores used X-ray fluoroscopes to check the fit of the shoe. So they put the shoe on. This is not his exact one, but
We have Spalding's, I think, at the other museum.
there is one at the other museum that came from Spalding's
When I worked there in the 70s, they still had one in the basement that worked.
and still have one
So where was that one?
That was at Forrest.
in the basement. So when Spalding's did Forrest buy the shoe store from Spalding
No, they were both in business at the
at the same
same time.
time? Okay.
They were side by side.
Yeah.
Yes.
They were side by side. Okay.
And it was Sagers and Spalding's side by side for a while.
Sagers and Spalding side by side. Okay. So they said that, the appeal of this was it prevented foot deformities because you could look inside. There was like a little peephole or something. You could look in, the mom and dad could look in, the salesman could look in to see the bones in the feet, how they lined up in the shoe. And of course, you can guess why they quit doing that, because of the radiation. And, really, they shouldn't have been having it in the 50s because they knew in the 30s that this was wrong, but, continued to do that. So there were a number of salespeople that were severely affected by this. And then think about, I think about sometimes I try on 30 shoes before I find one that fits. Just think of how much radiation you'd be getting as a child. Caleb Maston Sanborn was born in New York in 1836. He married several times and was the father of 5 or more children. In a published biography of him, it said that he was one of the city's oldest, most prominent businessmen, having been born in 1836 in New York. He was kind of, I've got a lot here on him, so not a lot of time to read it. And so when he was a young man of 18, he had about $2.50 when the family settled in Maquoketa. But by hard work and good management, he got ahead to buy an interest in a blacksmith and a wagon shop. And then he sold out at the end of the year and went into farming. And then he was in the grocery business, and then he sold out that share. And kind of goes on and on. So he's a very active businessman. In 1896, the Excelsior wrote about the C.M. Sanborn and Company, that they sold groceries and boots, and that it was established about 34 years prior to that. So they would have been in the 1860s. The new store, a 3-story new brick building just off Pleasant Street and fronting on Main Street, is just about complete, and a sale was going to precede the moving, so they didn't have to move all that stuff. East Platt Street and South Main Street. So the store on the corner of Platt Street, you see right there, is Scholl's, J.L. Scholl's Shoes. And the sign on the building around the corner, I don't know how you say that, Chautauqua sign. Chautauqua. And then there's a hardware sign at the top of the second building on South Platte. The postmark on the postcard was 1907. And the Emerson Hotel and the clock tower are farther east on the street. Albert L. Scholl was born in 1884 and spent all his life in Maquoketa. He was in the shoe business and specialized in orthopedic shoes. And as I'm looking and reading about this, I thought, is this the same guy that we see all the Scholl stuff in It's not. It's not. But he was an inventor. But no, this other Dr. Scholl, he had. Oh, I guess I don't have it here. But anyway, he had hundreds and hundreds of inventions. So these are ads from the 1888 and 1889. And from the 1896 Excelsior Scholl Brothers Corner Cash Store. The proprietors of this house have been, for the past 12 years, rendering satisfaction to patrons. Mr. John H. and Mr. James L. are the enterprising members of this firm. So Scholl's Brothers, that was where you were? Or Schultz? No, that was Schultz. Okay, Scholl's Brothers. And here's a view of Main Street looking south. And again, you see Scholl's shoes are, I can't see the picture's too small here. They're supposed to be on the left. Scholl's is on the left somewhere here. And RIB Beer, what was that, Bonnie? You said that.
Gee, that was news to me too when I saw that.
Okay, I don't know what
that
RIB Beer stands for. Maybe that's a presentation for another time. Scholl's Brothers, 1890 ad reads, "Dead, dead, dead. We do not do business upon the past reputation of the dead." I'm not sure what that's all about. But they had some really inventive slogans. 1892 ad, "One chance in 1,000, corner cash shoe store." So whatever they had in that store, yeah, it's one chance in 1,000 that anybody else would have that. 1913 Platt ad. They were located at 128 Main Street. And it said that, see at the bottom of the ad, it says, "Big shoe" on the top of the building. Do we have pictures of that? I would love to see a picture of a great big shoe on top of the building. By 1916, John's son had joined the firm, and they were now doing business as John H. Scholl and Son. And this photo was taken in 1920, John with his shoemaking equipment. And in his obituary from 1934, it stated that he was in the shoemaking trade for 71 years, and he had been assisted by his son Albert. And there's a picture of the happy Mr. and Mrs. Scholl, shown in their later years. And there they are in front of their house. I'm not sure where that house is, or if it's still standing. It looks so much like, many houses did. I don't know. Does anybody know? 1923. "We repair your shoes so that they look like new and wear longer than many new ones." So maybe about that time they were starting to get cheap shoes that weren't lasting. And then 1924 ad, "Freeman shoes for men, Irving Drew footwear for ladies." 1925, they were selling Simplex shoes for children, Drew shoes for ladies, Mayer work shoes for men, Pickenbrock fine shoes for men, and Martha Washington shoes for comfort. John H. Scholl and Son. A.L. Scholl was John's son. The year that this ad appeared, I don't know. I'm not sure where I got that. Shown is Albert Scholl's 1949 Metascope patent. So he did have, John's son Albert had 2 patents. So this is his patent on the right. And on the left, I just, got that off the internet. So his invention would have looked something like this. And here is a picture of Albert on the right with the actual, but you just can't see it, as well. And then that's also him at a younger age on the left. So this device that was his own making, and what this does is it takes the length, width, elevation, and position reading of all 26 bones in the human foot. I thought it just measured from the tip of your toe to the back of your heel, but it did all that too. And he sold some 150 of them all over the United States. Raise your hand if you got fitted with one of these at Spalding's, remember? They always had that. They always did it for me. I just had to put my shoe in that metal thing. No?
Oh, yeah, the foot thing.
Yeah, you remember that.
Yeah.
don't you? And then they slid the thing over the side. Yeah.
Actually, I think that was a pretty good thing.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that they measured, absolutely. And then he had another patent a few years later in 1962, and They described it as a resurfacing tool. So I'm thinking it had something to do with shoes, maybe shaving off, you know, a little layer to make it the heel shorter. I don't know. It didn't really explain a lot. So Albert had other interests besides just shoes. He was a musician. And here he is with this Hawkeye Jazz Wizard band. And another one. And it says, okay, so Albert, manager and drums, Bill Johnson, trombone, Charles Schlegel was the trumpet, Harold Hinckley, substitute violin, Edmund Rich was the regular violin, and Arthur Flegel was the pianist. Is this building still here? No, this building is gone.
That's where Dr. Lecter worked.
Right.
Oh.
Library.
So this is used to be on Pleasant Street. Okay.
They tore
Kitty.
the top of it off. That's still the same building, I think. They tore off the top floor of that building.
No,
Not the same?
I don't think
It's the
so.
apartment building?
Oh, the Midland Hotel, that was the apartment
Oh.
Is
building?
that, yeah, they
But
tore
this
it.
was
I
on
had
the
helped
corner,
tear the top
wasn't it?
floor of that off.
I don't
This
know.
was next door.
Okay.
I don't know. So this maybe was on the corner of Pleasant, Pleasant and, what is that street, Niagara? So they advertised arch supports and special order shoe. And, okay, on his sign and then on the right, the building that we were just talking about. And here is Albert Scholl behind the counter in his shoe store. Look at all those rows and rows of shoes. You know, at Spalding's, they kept all those in the basement, all their shoes. So here's the shoe hospital. Just wondering if this John Janetta took over for the shoe hospital that was run by them. So I found a John Janetta that was 40 years old in 1920 and was a shoemaker living in Cass County, Iowa. He had been born in Italy. Could have been him. And if it was, he was a Gold Star father. His only son, Private Maurice Janette, was killed in action while assigned to the 2nd Infantry Division in operations against the German Army during Battle of the Brest in 1944. And his family did move around a lot, always kind of, within the state. Joseph Walker, proprietor. The secondhand store advertised a big shoe store. I don't know if they had new shoes. Just had a lot of old ones to sell. Took trade-ins, maybe they took trade-ins or something. Sokol and Kegley, 1892. Dry goods, clothing, hats, caps, boots, shoes, groceries, and provisions. Here's the interior of Spalding's shoe store, which most of us remember. And Bonnie said that those shelves are at the Pennygroth machine shed that are used as a display. J.E. White, durable and stylish footwear. And here's a picture of John and Lola Wright. Advertisement notes that they were located in the Opera House block. Mr. Wright came from England, and they were the parents of Lillian and Howard Heber Wright. By 1900, he was a grocer and continued into the 1930s. And at the age of 77, the last census I found for him in 1930, he was still in the grocery business. 1913 plat ad. Detlef Peterson was a dealer in general merchandise. Peterson opened this store in 1907. He was born in Clinton in 1899 and married with 3 children, and he sold Brown's shoes, White House shoes for men and women, and Buster Brown shoes for children and Miles. Who had Buster Brown shoes? I know I had some. I think they made clothing too. It seemed like I bought Buster Brown clothing. The Buster Brown shoe demonstration at Detlef Peterson's general merchandising store in Miles. And I did have a date on this, I'm not sure. He also had a store on wheels, and it was like a van, and he would go door to door selling his groceries. Eldon Clausen was a driver for Peterson. And all of the people that you see in the photo here, they're all unidentified. Look at the family up at the top there. holding babies and they're kind of close to the, the railing there. That would make me a little nervous. 1913 Platt ad. Frank S. Bascom sold clothing, furniture, and footwear. He was married to Josephine, and they were the parents of 4 children. J.R. Case has received a large stock of staple and fancy dry goods, and then he also had groceries as well. Urschenberger, a native of Switzerland, was born in 1829. He was listed as a boot and shoemaker in 1870, living near Mount Algor. 1913 ad in the Platt Book, King's, Preston's leading store. Clothing and Company. Alvin McLaughlin was born in Mercer County, Pennsylvania in 1829. We had a number of people that came here from Mercer County, Pennsylvania. He married Esther Traver. They were the parents of 7 or more children, and they lived in Preston for about 20 years, and later moved to Clinton and then to the state of Washington. He was also a merchant, a stockbroker, and in 1904 was the oldest living justice of the peace, probably in Iowa, I would think. He also served in the legislature. In 1884, John D. Stickley was appointed postmaster of Monmouth. And I'm not sure if this is the same John Stickley who's buried in Hickory Grove. I'm just not sure on that, which one that was. We're almost done. Last slide. Samuel Foster served with the 2nd Iowa Cavalry. And if you want to know more about him, I did a brown bag lunch on him a few years ago. And he had a fascinating history. And kind of a sad thing that I'd mentioned in the other program was because they offered so much credit to the customers that when they closed, I mean, he just had no money then because these people defaulted. He expected them to be honest like he was, and they weren't. So, and Sweezy was his brother-in-law. He was married to Marilda Sweezy. Does anyone have any questions? Yes?
When did he lose his business, or?
When was that? And sometimes, I'll snip an ad and then I fail to put the date on there. But I'm just trying to think. That would have been in the 1800s because he had, fought in the Civil War. So.
Is that the Sweezy Cemetery?
Yeah, so this is the Sweezy Cemetery, people. So Marilda Sweezy, her father donated the land for the Sweezy Cemetery. I'm trying to think right now. That whole family I did have all figured out. No, I don't have it without looking at it right now. But.
Okay, through all this, back in the 1860s and stuff, the shoes were all handmade.
I think in the 60s, but then you could see later in the late 1800s they were buying some. Then they had some name brands.
And then that's when you think they became mass manufactured?
Probably. Yeah, I should probably Google that and find out when they start being mass produced. But I think even once they were mass produced, you could still get your own shoes made. Probably, people that maybe were hard to fit.
Or they could be altered or something.
Because I did notice that they would say, a lot of the shoes they had on sale, and they were the narrow width. They had a lot of narrow width shoes.
Well, I think you still get custom-made shoes today, but
You can get custom.
In England.
Yeah, yeah, definitely get custom shoes. Yeah, it makes you wonder what it would have been like wearing a custom pair.
Well, a lot of the boots back then, especially, and the shoes and boots, they weren't left or right. They were the
Yes.
same shoe.
The same shoe, weren't left or right.
So,
so-
like for example, as a union officer, I would put my boots on, but then I would have to make sure when I take them off, I keep them in the right order, so I put them back on the same feet, so that it molds to your feet.
So Terry said that you needed to keep track of which shoe you wore on which foot because your foot was the shoe was getting molded by your foot. So if you kept switching around and putting the right on the left and the left on the right, even though they were the same shoe, it would have caused some foot problems. And I think there would have been some foot problems anyway, looking at those lady shoes from the 20s.
Oh, I know.
Those look so uncomfortable. And then you have the buttons. Judy?
Fun fact, going back to Graham's department store, I thought of later, our merchandise, our t-shirts and stuff that we sell, sweatshirts, those are in 4 wooden crates, and those, the workers found them when they were remodeling. The 4 original cash registers for Graham's department store came in those crates.
Oh, wow.
So, and on the back of, there's 4 of them, and one is in pretty good shape. You can see National Cash Register Company. It's like an ad or whatever on the back of it.
Back of the box.
I have a picture.
You know,
Anyway,
I was thinking about Graham's too, and actually Cassidy Sporting Goods, I think, was the only store downtown when I was little you could go to, and they valued you as a customer. I mean, there are things that, you know, we could spend our allowance on. But man, if you went to Graham's without your mom and Mrs. Hildebrandt was working, she was gonna watch you like a hawk, and she was gonna say something to you if you touched something. She was just, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, if you took your mom with you, she was nice. So, you know, I guess, you know, kids wouldn't have had enough money to spend in that store like they would at Cassidy's. You could buy something real Florida at Cassidy's, I think. Thank you.